Part 7 of Eros and Psyche by Robert Bridges. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nathan at antipodeanwriter.wordpress.com. Eros and Psyche by Robert Bridges. Part 7. September. On the Hellenic board of Crete's fair isle, westward of Drepanon, along a reach which massy Siamum for many a mile, jutting to sea, delivers from the breach of north and east, returning to Bay, the favoured shore, an ancient city lay, Aptera, which is wingless in our speech. And hence the name, that here in rocky cove, thence called Museion, was the trial waged, what day the Sirens with the Muses strove, by jealous Hera in that war engaged, wherein the daughters of Mnemosyne overcame the chauntresses who vexed the sea, nor vengeance spared them by their pride enraged. For those strange creatures who with women's words and wiles made ravenous prey of passers-by were throated with the liquid pipe of birds. Of love they sang, and none who sailed anigh through the grey hazes of the cyanine sea had wit the whirlpool of that song to flee, nor feared the talon-hooked and feathered thigh. But them the singers of the gods overcame, and plucked them of their plumage, where in fright they vainly fluttered off to hide their shame, upon two rocks that lie within the bight, under the headland, barren and alone, which being with the scattered feathers strewn, were by the folk named Leucae, which is white. Thereon about this time the snowy gull, minion of Aphrodite being come, plumed himself, standing on the sea-wrack dull, that drifted from the foot of Siamum. And 'twas his thought, that had the goddess learnt the tale of Psyche loved and Eros burnt, she never so long had kept aloof and dumb. Wherefore that duteous gossip of love's queen devised that he the messenger would be, and rising from the rock he skimmed between the chasing waves, such grace have none but he, into the middle deep, then down he dived, and rowing with his glistening wings arrived at Aphrodite's bower beneath the sea. The eddies from his silver pinions swirled the crimson, green and yellow floss that grew about the caves, and at his passing curled its graceful silk and gently waved anew, till oaring here and there the queen he found, strayed from her haunt unto a sandy ground, dappled with eye-rings in the sunlight blue. She, as he came upon her from above, with Hora played, Hora, her herald fair, that lays the soft necessity of love on maidens' eyelids, and with tender care marketh the hour, as in all works is fit, and happy they in love who time outwit, fondly constrained in her season rare. But he with garrulous and laughing tongue broke up his news, how Eros, fallen sick, lay tossing on his bed, to frenzy stung by such a burn as did but barely prick a little bleb, no bigger than a pease. Upon his shoulder 'twas that killed his ease, fevered his heart, and made his breathing thick. For which disaster hath he not been seen this many a day at all in any place? And thou, dear mistress, piped he, hast not been thyself amongst us now a dreary space? The pining mortals suffer from a dearth of love, and for this sadness of the earth thy family is darkened with disgrace. Now on the secret paths of dale and wood, where lovers walked, are lovers none to find, and friends, besworn to equal brotherhood, forget their faith, and part with words unkind. In the first moon thy honey bond is loathed, and I could tell even of the new betrothed, that fly over sea, and leave their loves behind. Summer is over, but the merry pipe that wont to cheer the harvesting is mute, and in the vineyards where the grape is ripe no voice is heard of them that take the fruit. No workman singeth at eve, nor maiden danceth, all joy is dead, and as the year advanceth, the signs of woe increase on man and brute. 'Tis plain that if thy pleasure longer pause, thy mighty rule on earth hath seen its day. The race must come to perish, and no cause but that thou sittest with thy nymphs at play, while on a Cretan hill thy truant boy hath with his pretty mistress turned to toy, and less for pain than love pineth away. Ha! Mistress, cried she, hath my beardless son been hunting for himself his lovely game? Some young Orestiad hath his fancy won, some Naiad, say, or is a Grace his flame? or maybe Muse, and then 'tis Erato, the trifling wanton. Tell me, if thou know, woman or goddess is she, and her name?" Then said the snowy gull, "O heavenly queen, what is my knowledge, who am but a bird? Yet is she only mortal, as I ween, and named Psyche, if I rightly heard." But Aphrodite's look daunted his cheer, a scare he fled away, screaming in fear, to see what wrath his simple tale had stirred. He flashed his pens, and sweeping widely round, tower'd to air so swift in all his way, that whence he dived he there again was found, as soon as if he had but dipped for prey. And now or ever he joined his wailful flock, once more he stood upon the Sirens' rock, and preened his ruffled quills for fresh display. But as ill tidings will their truth assure without more witness than their fatal sense, so since was nothing bitterer to endure, the injured goddess guessed the full offence, and doubted only whether first to smite, or Psyche for her new presumptuous flight, or Eros for his disobedience. But full of anger to her son she went, and found him in his golden chamber laid, and with him sweet Euphrosyne, attent upon his murmured wants, aye, as he bade, shifted the pillows with each fretful whim. But scornfully his mother looked at him, and reckless of his pain gan thus upbraid: "O worthy deeds, I say, and true to blood, the crown and pledge of promise, thou that wast in estimation my perpetual bud, now fruiting thus untimely to my cost, backsliding from commandment, and worse, with bliss to favour one I bade thee curse, and save the life I left with thee for lost. Thou too to burn with love, and love of her whom I did hate, and to thy bed to take my rival, that my trusted officer might of mine enemy my daughter make. Dost thou then think my love for thee so fond, and miserably doting that the bond, by such dishonour strained, will not break? Or that I cannot bear another son as good as thou, or if I chose not beg as good a lusty boy of one of all my nymphs, and some have boys to spare, whom I might train, to whom thine arms made o'er should do me kinder service than before, to smite my foes and keep my honour fair? For thou hast ever mocked me and beguiled in amours strange, my God, thy valiant sire, and having smirched our fame while yet a child, wilt further foul it now with earthly fire. But I, do as thou may, have vowed to kill thy fancied girl, whether thou love her still, or of her silly charms already tire. Tell me but where she hides." And Eros now, proud in his woe, boasted his happy theft, confessing he had loved her well, and how, by her own doing, she was lost and left, and homeless in such sorrow as outwent the utmost pain of other punishment, was wandering of his love and favour reft. By which was Cyprus gladdened, not appeased, but hid her joy, and spake no more her threat, and left with face like one that much displeased hath yet betrayed that he can wrong forget. When lo, as swiftly she came stepping down from her fair house into the heavenly town, the Cronian sisters on the way she met. Hera, the wife of Zeus, her placid front dark with the shadow of his troubled reign, and tall Demeter, who with men once wont, holding the high Olympians in disdain, for Periphases' rape, which now forgiven, she had returned unto the courts of heaven, and 'mong the immortals lived at peace again. Whose smile told Aphrodite that they knew the meaning of her visit, and a flush of anger answered them, while hot she grew. But Hera laughed outright: "Why, thou dost blush? Now see we modest manners, on my life, and all thy little son has got a wife, can make the crimson to thy forehead rush. Didst think he, whom thou madest passion's prince, no privy dart then for himself would poise? Nay, by the cuckoo on my sceptre, since 'twas love that made thee mother of his joys, art thou the foremost to his favour bound, as thou shouldst be the last to think to sound the heart, and least of all thy wanton boys." But her Demeter, on whose stalwart arm she leaned, took up: "If thou wilt hark to me, this Psyche," said she, "hath the heavenly charm, and will become immortal, and may be. To marry with a woman is as well as wed a god and live below in hell, as 'twas my lot in child of mine to see. Which things they both said, fearing in their hearts that savage Eros, if they mocked his case, would kill their peace with his revengeful darts, and bring them haply to a worse disgrace. But Aphrodite saying, Good, my dames, behind this smoke I see the spite that flames, left them, and on her journey went apace. For having purposed she would hold no truce with Psyche or her son, 'twas in her mind to go forthwith unto the throne of Zeus, and beg that Hermes might be sent to find the wanderer, and secure that in such quest he would not fail. She ponder'd but how best she might inflict her vengeance long designed. End of part 7. Recorded by Nathan at antipodeanwriter.wordpress.com.